I am on a quest. I want to find out how to make software and hardware perform at their peak. I want to know how to make applications faster and more efficient. And while I'm at it, I want to have a little fun. Don't think I can do it? Just watch me. I'm Scott Moore, and this is the Performance Tour. Is it time again for another episode of the Performance Tour? Yes, it is. Well, you caught me again in the middle of nowhere because I'm always on the road. This episode is all about the digital employee experience, and we're going to start this off a little differently. So I'm out here in a remote area. I'm going to show you where I'm at. We still got to do a show. Thanks to my trusty SpeedFusion case from West Networks, we're going to have internet out here, but we're going to do our show right here with technology. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, I think we have the satellite connection up, and I think we have a connection. I'd like to welcome Jeff Hickson to the Performance Tour from remote. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about you?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, my name is Jeff Hickson. I'm from Lakeside Software. I've been here for about 12 years now. I lead the global solution architects here at Lakeside. Prior to Lakeside, I was in IT. I was in the trenches. I supported several small businesses around the Detroit metro area. I also worked for a large steel manufacturing company supporting all of their users in several different states. So I know what it feels like to be in the trenches. I know what it feels like when the users are screaming that it's slow. Is it fixed yet? You hide yourself into a data center to prevent users from calling you and sending you more and more tickets. I get it. I got tired of it, obviously. It's very draining. So I'm very empathetic to what IT goes through even today. I moved into Lakeside because we have a solution that provides a lot of visibility to IT to help them solve some of those problems.
I think there's a lot of people working in those trenches that you described that are watching right now who know exactly what you're talking about, Jeff. And this term, digital employee experience, there seems to be a lot more pressure these days on teams to create a better digital employee experience. But can you kind of define that term for me and all of us in a way that anybody can understand?
Yeah, good question. So digital employee experience is the quantification, understanding, and optimization of how technology impacts the user's business. So in other words, if you think about it and you break it down, digital is all about the devices the user uses and the technology that interacts with those devices. So laptops, desktops, physical or virtual, are the devices that the user uses. And then those devices interact with different technologies. So you've got network components, you've got application components, you've got peripherals that are connected to these devices. And that all goes towards that digital experience. The employee aspect of it is just that. It's those employees that are using those devices. And the experience side of it is the experience of the employee is getting from those devices. So said differently, DEX is all about the employee using devices to complete their job and the experience that they're getting from those devices while doing so.
So, Jeff, what are some of the primary drivers for creating this digital employee experience? Because I can remember back when we had bring your own device, when the mobile revolution came about, people were bringing their mobile devices to wanting to work with them, and there was a need to control them. But I think the landscape has kind of changed these days, where it's more about we're post pandemic, and we've got people now working from home all the time through their VPN, and there's other reasons why it would be a push for digital employee experience at this time. Is that right?
Yeah, I was in the same era as you, Scott. So, we had policies upon policies just to lock down systems and can really control what the user could do and when they could do it. Today, that's not the case. Today is definitely much more of a modern workforce where we have remote workers. After COVID, that's never changing. We are always going to continue to have remote workers, and those are users that IT cannot control. There's elements of those workers that we have no visibility into. We can't control their home networks. We can't see what they're doing on their home networks. We can't understand the fact that they have 5 smart TVs and their kids are streaming music and playing games, impacting their productivity. So being able to support those remote workers is definitely driving DEX. And we also have iPad era babies now entering the market. And they're used to having more control and more options, tech at their fingertips and mobility. But it's not just about the tech. Think about organizations that have game rooms and lounges or even beer coolers. They're adapting to the needs of their workers. And we have to do that with tech. We have to do that with IT, which means that the modern workforce is going to continue to evolve. It's going to become more fluid, and IT is going to play a less and less role in the control of this workforce and more of a bigger role into supporting that workforce.
So maybe, like me, being in this vehicle, working remote from anywhere, maybe this is an example of the modern workforce that you're describing. So if companies want to improve their digital employee experience, what are some best practices that they can use, or what are some of the things they can look for to improve that?
Yeah, and a lot of organizations are struggling with this today. It's because they don't know what they don't know, because they don't have the visibility into what the experience is today. So it's important that when we're thinking about DEX and understanding how we even get started, first and foremost, we have to collect quantitative data to measure the experience. And that data needs to be a lot of it. We can't just rely on surveys for the users. We need quantitative data, and we need it frequent. If we're collecting data every 10, 15, 20 minutes, a lot can happen in that time frame. When we're collecting data, it needs to be in seconds, and it needs to be from lots of different resources. It can't be from 1 or 2 different data points or even a couple hundred data points. It needs to be from thousands of different data points to really understand what that is impacting the end user. More importantly, we have to have historical data. It's hard to understand where we're going if we don't understand where we've been. So it's important that we have not only the depth, the breadth, and the history of data in order to get started in your digital experience.
I can absolutely see why data is critical to get and have visibility into seeing how you can improve that digital experience. But when you're talking about that much data, it sounds really expensive to me. I'm wondering if it's going to overwhelm the IT group. And I'm just wondering, is it possible you can be getting too much data?
So in my eyes, and I'm a bit biased, but in everything that I've done, there's no such thing as too much data. Every decision that we make in life is about data. And the better decisions that we make is because we have more data to make those decisions. And with data at our fingertips from things such as Google or Bing or whatever the case may be, we're able to make more informed decisions as users than ever before. And it's no different for IT. I mean, you think about if you're the C-level person and you have to go and make $1 million decision, are you going to want to make that decision off a couple of different data points? No, you are going to pull in as much data is from as many places as you can to ensure that you're making the proper decision. You need complete visibility into what it is that you're trying to solve before making those kinds of decisions. Another analogy, you think about a 4K TV, right? All those different data points make a more clear and crisp picture. Without it, it's dull and it's grainy, and you may not have the complete picture or the picture that you're looking for to make the necessary decisions. And then you look at things such as ChatGPT or Google Bard. You think that those platforms for AI and automations and machine learning are going to work with less data? So as we evolve and as we continue to understand what it is that we need to support our users in this modern workforce, it's more data that we need. It's the depth, the breadth, and the history of it. If you don't have that high data collection interval with a wide breadth of that data, you only have partial story. You can only see part of the picture. And if anyone tells you that you have too much data or you don't need that data, my recommendation to you is don't walk, run away. Because decisions are going to be made off of data. It's human nature. It's what we do today. And we make better decisions with more data.
Okay. All right. Let's say I have all this data. You've got to somehow visualize it and create metrics that let me know if I'm making progress, how well I'm doing. So how do you measure success? Is it in some type of financial information that says we know how much this such and such is costing you? Is it that we've retained more employees and haven't lost as many employees over a given time? Or is it just less support calls?
Yeah. So the one thing it cannot be is less tickets. If you're measuring success by, a number of tickets are reducing, that's setting yourself up for failure. And the reason that I say that is think about yourselves. Do you report every problem that you have to IT? You don't. You deal with it. You get frustrated. You don't want to have to call the help desk, spend 20 minutes, an hour on the phone, troubleshooting, trying to reproduce. So you just deal with it. You suffer in silence. So the fact that tickets are being reduced doesn't necessarily mean that you're improving the digital employee experience. It potentially means that your users are frustrated and they've given up. Same thing with employee sentiment by itself. You can't really just look at the employee sentiment on its own. After every Zoom meeting or Teams call and most collaboration tools, you get these little surveys at the end of them. How many of us actually fill out that survey? Very rarely do we fill those out. So think about the only time that we do fill out those surveys is when it's really poor. And then what's the IT vision? The sky is always falling. It's really bad because that's all we ever get. So sentiment by itself isn't a good measurement as well. Attrition, maybe a year ago when users were frustrated and they were bouncing around and the market was great. Now, not so much. Users are unsure of the market. They're not willing to risk to move out to another company. They're just going to suffer in silence again. And same thing with financial metrics. Maybe we are making more widgets and maybe we are selling more of those widgets, but that doesn't mean the employee experience is good. In order to measure success for digital employee experience, you need to have quantitative metrics that measure that end user experience. And again, it goes back to that depth, breadth, and most importantly, the history. How can you be successful if you don't know where you started? You need to have that before and after picture, a clear picture of what that experience was prior to making changes, adjustments, adding in new services or changing those services, and being able to quantify, did it make a positive or negative impact in the environment? And the only way that you can do that is with that historical data.
Okay, I've got it. Lots of data which produces insights, which produces changes that result in better digital experience. So I can understand this being a critical business issue today, especially where we're at right now in 2023. But how do we know about the potential long term? I mean, is this a high growth area? And how mature is the industry in this? Because I don't see everybody's doing this right now.
So Gartner says that by 2025, 50% of IT organizations will establish a DEX strategy. I tend to think it's going to be a lot faster than that. And I'm seeing it a lot faster than that. There's new departments that are forming across organizations, your enterprise organizations to even your more SMB type of organizations. The focus is really shifted from IT to the user. So we're seeing, new departments being created. We're seeing new C-level roles being created as well too, such as the chief experience officer or the chief digital officer. And these are the departments that are really driving the growth as it relates to the digital experience that the users are getting. The workforce is going to continue to evolve. IT is no longer in control of everything and anything that the user's doing. IT is actually controlled by the users. So they need to have the visibility and the resources to support, optimize, and improve the digital employee experience. So I see that not necessarily by 2025, I see it even sooner than 2025, that the majority of especially our enterprise organizations are going to be really driving this tech strategy.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate you being on the show with me today and talking to me about digital employee experience and how data is really the foundation for the success for it. I kind of define the modern workplace being on the road as much as I am, and I want to be successful no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing. So I can see where this is going to be a real focus for IT in the coming years and a huge growth potential for everybody involved in this space. So I look forward to sharing more about digital employee experience in future episodes of the show. And it looks like we've had another successful episode of the Performance Tour. I hope you've learned something about digital employee experience. I sure have. But there is one thing that we haven't done yet. I'm going to go find the nearest town, which I'm in the middle of Florida right now. So the nearest town I think is Sarasota. And on the outskirts, there happens to be a barbecue place called Nancy's Barbecue. And I'm hungry. Let's go find it.